passenger window?
The rear passenger window, the indications are that it was not up, maybe a little bit up, but certainly not fully up or close to fully up. What you don't see is any glass within these edges, caught in the edges. When windows get shattered by bullets, you'll end up with pieces of glass that stay stuck in that weather stripping. And there's no glass found. There wasn't a substantial amount of glass found on the ground at the scene or inside the vehicle, which tells me that the shattered glass would be inside the door for the most part.
And so, based on all of those factors, can you, just from an analysis of the physical evidence, make a determination of the position of the window at the time that these shots were fired?
I can. It's got to be close to fully down. It can't be close to fully up, because you would expect to see that glass somewhere deposited either on the ground or inside the vehicle, and it's not there.
Okay. Sir, I want to direct your attention within this particular photograph to the white tags that appear below certain areas of the red Durango along the side. First, what are those white tags?
Those are they're 2-inch adhesive scales. So they basically have a ruler with inches on one side and centimeters on the other. And these are ones that are placed there by the crime scene investigators to show size when they take photographs of them, and they also label each one with a number so you can distinguish pictures of one hole from pictures of another hole.
Okay. And when you say that they were, what are they under? What are those items that they're notating?
Each one is underneath a bullet hole in the exterior of the vehicle.
Okay, so in this particular photograph, it appears that there are 3 bullet holes to the rear passenger door and 3 bullet holes to the front passenger door. Is that fair to say that was your findings from your analysis as well?
Yes.
And did JSO, in putting those tags on, randomly assign each of those bullet holes a particular number so that they could document it in their reports?
Yes.
Okay. And what are those numbers? Could you just indicate what the numbers are and how they correlate to, if you can?
If I'm not mistaken, I believe that this is 4, then this one is 5, and then this one here is 6, and then this one is 7, 8, and 9.
Okay. And in this next photograph, sir, what are you documenting there at the frame of the car door?
This is a picture that the sheriff's office took of, this is the copper jacket, or actually I believe it's a nickel jacket from one of the bullets.
Okay. And what significance does it have that is there?
Well, that would correspond to, of the 3 wounds, only one of them actually had an exit wound. So this would correspond to that wound, meaning that the bullet came out, and that what we're seeing is the jacketed portion, which is the covering of the bullet, is lying on the floor here, and then there was actually a lead fragment that was found on the ground on the other side of the Durango where it was finally parked.
And given its location, sir, would it be fair to say that puts the person who was struck by that bullet closer to that right rear door than to the other side? Your Honor, may I?
Sustain.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Knox, if you'll look at the next photograph, please. What are we looking at in that photograph?
This is showing there's 2 fired cartridge cases that are actually kind of beneath the windshield wiper, the left side windshield wiper of the Jetta.
Okay. And so this is a different vehicle than the Durango that we've been looking at, is that right?
That's correct.
What does that tell you about the position of the person who was shooting?
Well, what that would mean is that the firearm had to have been outside the window, extended out of the Jetta at the time of firing. It wouldn't have gone through the windshield or anything to get to where it is, so it would have to be out and ahead of that in order for the cartridge cases to land on the outside of the windshield.
And when you say the left side, are you referring to the car from the perspective of the driver, that it would have been on, someone sitting in the driver's seat, they would have, this is the left side of the windshield?
That's right.
Okay, all right. Sir, given the position of the casings, and assuming that if you would, that the testimony has been that for the 6 bullet holes that we've looked at so far, that Mr. Dunn was inside his car. What does that do to your analysis of the trajectory or angles of this case?
Well, by knowing that he's seated in the driver's seat, it restricts where he could be. So you know that there's kind of a limitation. Obviously, he's seated within that seat, and then he's only got the area of the window to be able to reach through or to be able to fire through. So that restricts where he could be, which helps us then relate back, once we relate the two vehicles, where these trajectories came from and where they went.
Okay. So it's fair to say that the range of movement would be restricted by the size of the window.
That's right.
Okay. Now, sir, if we'll go to the next slide, I believe this is the 12th rather slide within Defense Exhibit number 51, sir. What are we looking? First of all, did you take this photograph?
No, this is a Jacksonville Sheriff's Office photograph.
Okay. And is this a photo? What are the Jackson Sheriff's Office people doing or documenting with this photograph?
Same sort of thing that we did. They've actually taken dowels and put them through the holes, all 3 of the holes in the right rear door. The bullets passed completely through the door, so they came from the outside, went all the way through, and then came into the passenger compartment.
Okay. And is this particular photograph taken with the car door closed?
Yes.
Okay, so if you would, please mark on your screen what the line would be of that highest dowel if you extended further out.
It would continue this way. And
Absent any other obstructions, would it continue in that same line or angle?
that's right. If it doesn't hit something, it's going to continue pretty much in a straight line. Bullets don't actually travel in a straight line, but over really short distances, it's so close to straight that that's the way we model it.
Sir, if you would assume that someone is sitting upright in that rear passenger seat, on the right rear passenger seat, with their left arm extended along the back seat, would that line have caused a wound to that person seated in that position to his torso and up through his abdomen?
No.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes, ma'am. With quote for it.
The objection's overruled. Go right ahead, Ms. Anania.
Go ahead, Mr. Knox. I believe that we were discussing that if we extended that line from the top down and someone was seated in that right rear passenger seat with their arm extended along, their left arm rather, extended along the back seat, that line would mean that bullet would not strike that person.
That's right, because this is up at the front where it's almost straight above the front edge of the seat. So it would not strike somebody that was seated in the seat.
And for the record, we've been looking at the 12th slide within the composite defense exhibit number 1.
Number 51.
51, thank you, Your Honor, for correcting me. Mr. Knox, while we're still on this particular slide, again, for purposes of explaining, the car door is still closed. We're still looking at the 12th slide within composite exhibit number 51. The two lower dowels that JSO placed there and photographed, if those are extended outward, what area of the body would strike there? If a person were seated in that seat, again with their left arm extended across the back seat?
These two, what they would most likely encounter on a person sitting there would be the legs close to the knee area, basically on the thigh, somewhere about mid-thigh down to about just above the knee.
Okay. And, sir, we're looking now at the 13th slide within the composite exhibit number 51. Is this also a Jacksonville Sheriff's Office photograph?
It is.
And from what perspective is this being taken?
This is the camera's basically looking downward across those dowels that are sticking through the door.
Okay. And is that to help to show the angle of these dowels a little bit differently?
Yes.
Okay. If you can go to the next slide, sir. This would be the 14th slide in the composite exhibit. Would this have been a photograph that you took yourself?
Yes.
And this was during your analysis of this particular Durango?
That's correct.
And were the tags or the little scale markers that JSO had initially put on those bullet holes, they were still there?
Yes, they were.
Okay. And what are you doing in the 15th slide of that composite exhibit, sir?
This is showing a height measurement, so we know how high this particular bullet hole is, which you can see it's at about the 3-foot 2-inch mark.
And which bullet hole are you talking about, or are you measuring in this particular photograph?
Labeled as number 9.
Okay.
This is the front right door.
Okay. And what is the height of that particular bullet hole, or bullet strike?
About 3 feet 2 inches.
Okay. And sir, in the defense's composite exhibit, the next one is number 16 within that composite exhibit. Which particular bullet hole are you measuring here?
This is number 8. This is the one that's kind of in the middle of the right front door, and you can see that it's just shy of 3.5 feet. It's about 5 3/4.
And is that, given the closeness that it has to the window frame, is that why you indicated that was likely the one that would have shattered the window?
Yes, this is the one that actually looks like it's penetrated into the door enough to have shattered that glass.
Okay. What can you say about the bullet hole itself in terms of its characteristics?
It shows an angle, and the way that is that you have an oval shape to it. If a bullet hole were to hit a surface directly on, perpendicular to the surface, when the bullet hits, it's going to make a round hole. The more that you change that angle, as you bring the angle down, the hole gets more and more oval shaped. And what you can actually see from this is that the metal on this side of the hole is folded inward, and then you kind of have some torn metal on this side of the hole, which tells you that in this photograph, the bullet is traveling from right to left, going into that door.
So that gives you some idea, just from its appearance, as to the potential angle of this particular bullet.
That's right.
Okay. We can go to number 17 within the composite exhibit. Sir, which particular bullet hole are you documenting here?
This is number 7 against the right front door, and as you can see, this is the edge of the door right here.
And what's the height here, sir?
About almost 3'7". The center of the hole would be right about here, so it would come just short of 3 feet 7 inches.
And what can you say about the characteristics of this bullet hole?
Similar to number 8, you have indications it's more oval shaped, and that it came from this direction and is going right to left inward into the metal, actually penetrating the metal.
So based on the characteristics of the bullet hole itself, you can say that this bullet traveled at some particular type of angle.
That's right.
Into the car.
That's right.
Okay. All right, and if we could go to the 18th slide in the composite exhibit. So this is showing all 3 of the bullet holes to the right rear passenger door. Is that right, sir?
That's right.
And you're measuring the height of the highest one?
Well, you actually can see the heights of all of them. If you look the hole number 4, you're looking at slightly over 3 feet. Hole number 5, a little over 3 feet 1 inch, and then hole number 6 would be just shy of 3.5 feet. This being 3.5 here.
Let's take each of these bullet holes one at a time, sir. I'll just start with number 4 for ease of reference. What can you tell about the way the bullet struck this vehicle by looking at the characteristics of the bullet hole itself for number 4?
Again, there's some angle to it. They're a little bit oval shaped, and this would be the entrance side, and it's headed this direction. So you can tell that, again, they're coming right to left.
Okay. And what about number 5, sir?
Number 5 is similar. It's again, oval shaped, and the entrance side is here, meaning the bullet first makes contact on this side and then is traveling in that way.
And number 6?
Number 6 is a little bit more round looking in terms of the hole. It's still got some right to left angle to it, but it's a much more symmetric hole.
Would that mean, because it's a much more symmetric hole with less angle, that the angle would have decreased at the time for this particular bullet in terms of the way the bullet hit the car at that time?
Sustained.
I'll rephrase it. What does the particular characteristic that you just described tell you about the angle or lack of angle of the bullet at the time it struck the vehicle door?
It can be an indicator of that there's some difference in angle. There's not much difference in angle between these 3 shots, but there's also the other issue with bullets going into doors is that there's parts of the doors where the sheet metal is much more supported than others. And so as a bullet passes through, in some places it's able to penetrate through and actually perforate that metal quite easily. In other places it doesn't perforate quite so easily, so that will affect the shape.
And so let's go to...
Miss Annie, I think they want to change the color of his ability to draw, so if we give them a second, they've got to do their little thing there. Assuming you're going to be drawing more on the red.
Yes, sir.
Go.
Thank you, Ron.
Okay, I think we're ready.
I think we need to go back.
May I have 1 moment, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Knox, are you now looking at...
Hang on, Miss Annie, I hate to interrupt again. That microphone may have died. Is that one on? Yes, it is.
Okay. Mr. Knox, we're looking at the next slide in the composite number 51. What is this showing in terms of the position of the Durango? I believe that this is the 19th slide.
This is what we did is put the ruler out to show the height of the seat. So you can see that basically, obviously the seat's at an angle, which is most of them are. The back part of the seat would be at roughly 2.5, and then the front part of the seat would be at just shy of 2 feet 9 inches.
Okay. And if we could have the next one, please. Sir, this is the 20th slide in composite number 51. What particularly are you photographing here?
This is actually taking a photograph of the child lock where it's engaged. This is the right rear door of the Durango, and of course to access the child lock you have to open the door, and you can see that that's the door latch right there.
And so are we looking at the inside of the part of the door that typically would be against the frame when the car door is shut?
That's right.
Okay. And sir, would it be appropriate, based on your training, let me back up. During your time at the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, how were you trained in terms of preserving a scene and preserving physical evidence?
The object is the relevance of the person's testimony.
Sustain.
Was that the condition of the child lock at the time that you documented it, sir?
Yes.
Did you ever see anything from any of the materials that you reviewed that indicated that it was ever in any different position?
No.
Okay. All right. We can move on. If we could go to the next one, please. And then the next one. Sir, we're looking at the next photograph in the composite exhibit.
What number photograph in the
And I
composite?
believe that this is number 21, Your Honor, in the composite exhibit. What angle are you showing those dowels at that point, sir?
What I'm actually showing, this is a photograph that shows the dowels through there, and you can see that these three are basically parallel to one another at a particular angle, and then these three are fairly close to parallel to one another at a different angle than the front three.
Okay.
And I can tell you exactly what those angles are.
All right. If you would, sir, let's start, and we'll reference them by the number that we've been referencing them all along. Let's start with number 4, that bullet hole that was marked by JSO as number 4.
Okay, number 4, which I believe is this one right here. And what I did is measure, if you used a reference line along the side of the vehicle, and then you're looking at this angle in between. That's the angle measurements. That I took. That one is at an angle of number 4, which would be this one here, is at an angle of 75 degrees. So from the straight along the side of the vehicle to where that dowel is a 75-degree angle.
Okay. What about if you'll erase that and then take a look at the bullet hole that had been marked by JSO as number 5?
Number 5 is this one here, and again measuring this angle, I measured out to 73.6 degrees.
And if you'll clear that, sir, and then look at the bullet hole that was number 6.
And number 6, I believe, is this one here. And again, measuring that angle, it measured out to 79 degrees.
What are the angles of number 7?
Number 7, which would be this one, that angle actually measured out to 58.2 degrees.
And number 8?
And that's this one here, that angle measures out to 52.6 degrees.
And 59?
And again, this angle, and that measures out to 61.9 degrees.
Okay. Now, let's talk about the 3 dowels in the front passenger seat for a moment, sir. How would you characterize, and if you'll clear the markings, how would you characterize those 3 shots?
Well, these angles, what you can see, they're basically parallel to one another, but they're spaced about 1.5 feet, a little more than a foot between each one. So you have, the distance from here to here is about approaching 1.5 feet, then from here to here, and then from there to there. But they remain parallel to one another pretty much.
And what does that tell you, if anything, based on your training, your knowledge and experience, about how those shots were fired?
Well, what that would tell me is that by the time these shots are fired, that the Durango is beginning to back up. So it's actually rolling backwards, and the reason why each shot is a different distance forward is that the Durango has moved back, the shot is fired, the Durango moves back again, the shot is fired, and the Durango moves back some more, and the shot is fired. So they're spaced apart from one another.
Did you, as part of your analysis in this case, sir, listen to the videos, or watch and listen to the video surveillance that was taken at the Gate gas station on the night of the shooting?
Yes.
And did you do any analysis of the sounds that you heard on that video and audio surveillance?
I did, yes.
Based on the spacing of the shots that you heard, as well as where you can see that the bullets struck, what can you say about how much the car moved or reversed at the time of each of these strikes?
Well, like I said, the distance, you have these 3 are grouped quite tightly, which indicates to me that the Durango is not moving at that point. In fact, if you kind of draw these lines out, they sort of tend to converge together, so that those would be fired from a stationary, the vehicle itself is stationary. Then you see this movement, like I said, about 1.5 feet from here to here, 1.5 feet or so from here to here, and then about the same distance, a little bit less from there to there. And that's occurring over very short time frame.
What's that time frame, sir?
Basically, the first 3 shots are fired within less than 1/2 second. From the first shot to the second shot is 0.243 seconds. From the second shot to the third shot is 0.227 seconds. So if you total that up, it's 0.470, so a little bit less than 1/2 second.
And that's for all 3 of the first shots?
Yes.
Okay.
And then there's a slight gap. There's a gap of about 0.842, so a little bit more than 0.8 seconds. And then there's a series of 4 more shots. And again, those are occurring at about a 1/4 second apiece, a little bit shorter than a 1/4 second apiece spacing.
So based on this photograph that we're looking at, which is the overhead shot of the placement of the dowels, you said that if you took those lines out, they converge. And explain why that means that the Durango isn't moving for those first 3 shots.
Well, again, they're closely grouped. So what you generally will see in a shooting is if somebody is firing from a stationary position into a stationary object, then you'll either get close groupings because they're firing in the same direction, or if they change the direction of fire, if you pull the line from one and you pulled the line from the other and you bring them back and say that there's another one in the middle, there's a place where they're going to kind of all come together. And that's going to come back towards the area of where the firearm was, or where the shots are fired from.
Now, sir, If you were taking a look at this particular, and if you clear the markings for us, if you look at, we're still looking at the same photograph. If you would assume, sir, that there's a car parked to the right of this Durango, meaning at the, in the direction that the dowels end, at the end of the photograph, and that their front seats are aligned. What, if anything, given that information, can you say about that first grouping, those three that are grouped together, and given the information we already know that Mr. Dunn was seated in the car at the time that he fired all 6 of these shots?
Well, what happens is if they're aligned, where you have, let's just say this is over here, this would be another vehicle. You've got a driver's window that's aligned straight across from the Durango's driver's window. These shots don't come towards the window. They would hit the vehicle behind it. What that means is that you can't have a person that's seated here firing out the window, given that positioning of the vehicles, and hit this door and make those trajectories. The only way that happens is the door has to be open in order to align those trajectories back to this window.
Okay. Thank you, if you would clear that. And now, sir, let's go to the next, which I believe is number 22 with this within this composite defense exhibit number 21. In this particular diagram, sir, was this one that was drawn by you?
Yes.
Okay. And what is it showing to us?
Well, these would be the 2 parking spaces that we're talking about right here, and what that's showing is what's the width measurement. So you're looking at this space is 9 feet wide, and then the space that's kind of up against the curb, which is where the Jetta would be, it's 9-10, a little more than 9.5 feet wide.
Okay. Sir, is one of the things that you measured was the rear passenger car door as it was fully extended?
That's right.
Okay. And what was that full extension?
Well, the door itself is, the maximum length of the door is 40 inches long, but it only opens to an angle of 53 degrees. So if you measure out from the side of the vehicle and you measure over to the end of the door, then you're at a spacing of 2 feet 8 inches is what it would take. So in other words, if you have, you need a clearance of 2 feet 8 inches between the 2 vehicles to be able to fully open that door.
I'm sorry, you need 2 feet 8 inches in order to fully extend the right rear passenger door?
That's right.
Okay. And obviously that's for full extension. Would you need less space if it wasn't fully extended but was still open?
That's right, yes.
Your Honor, I'd asked at this point if we could have Mr. Knox step down and if we could have the easel that we
All right. If
provided
I can
brought
move
over.
the easel over, and Mr. Knox, you can step down.
No, I'm sorry, there's a,
There's not a line.
Yes, sir.
will this work for you? Okay. Your Honor, can you hear me? Okay. All right. All right, Mr. Knox. If you would, sir, what's more comfortable for you in terms of right, left-handed, in terms of being able to draw?
I'm right-handed, so this is fine.
Microphone, Mr. Knox. Well,
You can see, maybe I'll put it on my tie, it'll be a little better. Testing, see. It might be a little bit better.
I probably need one myself here, sorry.
All right, Mr. Knox, if you would, I want to take you through a couple of scenarios.
No, I was kidding. Thank you.
If you would, sir, draw for the jury, if you would, the 2 vehicles approximately, obviously, as they have been as we've been discussing them?
If we had, just say this is the Durango.
I don't think that microphone's working very well.
Let's see, maybe I can hold it up a little bit better. This is the Durango here. And this would mark the front seat area, and then this would mark the back seat area. And then, if we had the Jetta, it's just slightly shorter on the front end. And again, I'll mark that as this being the front seat area and this being the back seat area.
Okay. Now, this is obviously not exact, what you've done just now, sir.
Yeah, that's right. I'm not the greatest artist.
Okay. So now, if you would, so is this right here, what you're saying, the front seat area on both of these cars?
That's right. I'll mark this. I'll put a little F for front seat and R for rear seat.
Okay. Now, sir, if you would demonstrate for the jury what difference, if any, does it make to your analysis if the cars are parked more closely together than one would normally associate, a normal width?
What happens is, I'll start with the trajectories coming out from this right rear door. If we have the door in the closed position, if you draw out these trajectories, then what's going to happen is they'll hit the side of the Jetta. If we pull the Jetta closer, it hits further back. So in other words, I'll just use the blue one for this. Let's say that the Jetta is closer here. And you can see that at that point it would be further back on the Jetta. As we move the Jetta further away, then it gets further forward. So if it's closer, then what that means is that the angle of the door has to be wider, because what you have to do is basically take these lines. Let me change colors here. And these lines would have to aim back to here.
Why don't we do this, sir? Why don't you do this again for them and show them then the scenario where the cars are closer together and with the car door closed. There you go.
This one again. Okay, again we have the Durango, front and rear seat. Yep, just put it right there, be easier. And then the Jetta.
And again, just explain to the jury what you've just drawn. The diagram that's in the red is representing the Durango, and the diagram that's in the black is representing the Jetta?
That's correct.
Okay, all right.
And so then if you have this door,
If the car door is closed, first show us
if
that.
the car door is closed, then basically what you have is shots coming from that rear seat area. They would not be able to come from this open front window.
Okay. So if the cars are closer together, in order for someone sitting within that front seat, sitting in the front seat shooting through the window, where would the door have to be? That right rear passenger door?
It would have to be opened up something like this. So basically you have those trajectory lines are affixed to the door. If I move the door, I move the lines. And so the door would be open to the point that those lines point back to the open driver's window.
And is that because that the range of movement by the person shooting the gun is constrained by the frame of the window?
That's right, because you know that the firearm would have to be somewhere on either one side or the other of that open window. It can't be further back than it can't be further forward. It would be within the range of where you could reach. And with the door closed, those lines are pointing towards that rear seat. It's not an angle that would align to that front seat.
In order for those strikes to the right rear passenger door at the angle that we know them to have occurred, and B, coming from the front seat, where would this car have to be in relation to the Durango?
In order for for the door to be closed, basically this Jetta would have to be way over here, probably up on the sidewalk, on the curb. It would have to be well away, because again, as you move further away, then you start to get to where the lines would match. In fact, I can kind of demonstrate. If you extend it out, you can see that eventually you would get to where that front seat would be, but there would be quite a space in between those two vehicles. It would exceed that size of that parking space.
All right, sir, you can have a seat, and if you wouldn't mind. Thank you very much. Sorry. Mr. Knox, based on your examination of all of the items from JSO as well as your own examination of the Durango, can you say with 100% certainty what the angle was that the car door was open at the time? And again, we're talking about the right rear passenger door. The angle that the car door was open at the time that these shots occurred?
No, I couldn't say exactly what the angle is, because that is dependent on exactly how far apart the two cars are. Without having an actual number, a measurement to be able to know that they were this far apart, then that can vary depending on the spacing of the cars. But there's the minimum spacing obviously would be somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 feet 8 inches. If the door's not fully open, it could be closer than that. And the maximum spacing, if you put the cars with the Durango on the left side of the parking space and the Jetta on the right side of its parking space, you're looking at a maximum spacing of about 6.5 feet between them.
Even though you can't say with 100% accuracy what the angle of the car door while open was, can you say with 100% certainty that the car door was open to some extent?
Yes, if you have both front windows aligned and you have the vehicles anywhere relatively centered in the parking spaces, or not to the extremes of the parking spaces, then there's no way that those trajectories align without the door being open to some extent.
If I may have a moment, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't have anything further, Your Honor.
May I see counsel at the sidebar for just a second?